In this HR Tech Talk by HRTech Series, we have Holly Grogan, Chief Experience Officer at Appspace here to share a few thoughts on the latest HR tech trends defining the global landscape. Holly, it's so good to have you here today. There's so much that's changing in HR tech. There are so many evolving HR norms when it comes to the global hiring landscape, as well as in terms of the trends that are evolving in the B2B SaaS industry, which is in turn leading to a complete reshape of how HR tech should be implemented and should be used across organizations as well. So I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and we're looking forward to diving in deeper. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your role at AppSpace, and of course, your key learnings from your time in HR tech over the years?
Thank you for having me. I do appreciate the invitation and I'm happy to have the conversation with you. As you mentioned, I am the Chief Experience Officer at Appspace. So that means I'm responsible for both our team member and our customer experience. A little bit about Appspace. So we are a global organization. We have team members and customers all around the world. And we're focused on helping our customers create workplaces that employees love, ones where they can thrive anywhere. And we do that through our workplace experience platform. And so this includes both workplace management as well as workplace communication. I've been with AppSpace for 3 years. Prior to that, I've been in other HR tech pieces, predominantly in HCM. It's interesting to be in that kind of field when you are also responsible for team member experience at organizations, because I am looking at it from a user perspective, but also looking at it on how we solve solutions for our customers as well.
Absolutely. And as we're talking about HR tech today and the core trends that are defining the market, we'd love to hear from you more about how you're seeing trends today in terms of adoption patterns of certain tools within the landscape. What's really piquing the interest in the industry, and what do you think is really coming to the forefront more this year?
When we think about HR technology trends, the trend is really following the trend that leadership teams, executive teams, and even the boards are looking at around the employee experience. We didn't used to talk about that at that level, and now we do. And it's a priority for companies, and it's strategic priority around talent and how you engage with talent. So people are starting to now look around employee experience. And I think in the past few years, there's been this increased focus on creating a connected workplace and a connected workplace experience through that technology. And so I think that that is driving demand for very specific solutions. Organizations are focused on creating this connected experience for employees, whether they're in office, they're frontline, they're remote, they're hybrid, whatever the situation may be. And so I think that that's kind of creating a different demand in the market, and people want a technology solution to help them with that. And really importantly, around that, they want one that is going to be unified. They want one system that's going to be able to meet all those needs. They want that from the organizational standpoint, from administrating it, but also from a team member perspective. Team members want to be able to go to one place to be able to connect with their company, get communication, and connect with one another. I think as HR leaders and business leaders, they're looking for functionality that's intuitive, that it's engaging, but it also kind of mirrors the kind of experience that employees are used to getting as consumers.
Absolutely. And there's one element here that you spoke about when it comes to your role at AppSpace, which is very interesting that we like dive a little deeper into, which is connecting the employee as well as the customer experience. So a lot of brands today don't really realize the importance of doing that, and they might not even have dedicated teams when it comes to measuring this metric or putting processes in place to streamline efforts. So, of course, having these unified platforms is like one way of enabling this, but ensuring that the right teams know what they need to do, as well as know what elements in that particular dashboard to access or keep in place is the other part of the entire process or life cycle here. Based on your perspective, based on what you've been doing at Appspace in the recent years, what do you think modern organizations, why, and what do you think they should be doing when it comes to this lag that is quite prevalent across the industry?
Looking at customer experience and employee experience together, it just makes sense. They're very deeply interconnected. I think first, when you kind of look at it, that customer journey and the employee journey, they, will follow very similar paths. You always want to create a great employee experience, and you always want to be able to create a great customer experience. And I think the principles on how you do that are the same. The tactics might be different, but the methodology isn't. You want to attract and develop and retain great talent. You want to attract, develop, and retain great customers. And so it's about creating an ecosystem where, both employees and customers thrive, and one where the values of the company are really highlighted. And so when you pull that all together and you think about how those two are connected, if you have highly engaged employees, and so you're looking at the metrics around that, you are going to in turn be able to deliver exceptional customer service. And that's going to impact your customer satisfaction and the measures that you look around that, around retention and the CSAT levels. When you have employees that feel valued and they feel supported and they're aligned with the company's mission, they become motivated to go the extra mile for their customers. If you think about happy product and engineering teams, they're going to be more innovative and more creative, and they're more likely to deliver quality code. And then happy customer teams, are going to be the ones that are really going to serve their customers well. So I think if you align both perspectives and you align making that team member experience incredibly important and looking at the metrics around that with the customer experience, you're going to exceed your goals. If you make one happen, you're going to make the other one happen. So I think that it's a big win for the organization.
Absolutely. And one of the key processes, or, the must haves here, like we discussed, having the right platform, but having the right team members integrate all of this and know when to be on the same page and how to be on the same page to kind of drive this further. Now, when it comes to this lag, or when it comes to aligning the employee as well as customer experience, putting the two together to basically drive the organizational growth, it's probably more important for mid to large scale organizations to focus on this as opposed to smaller startups, right? Because they have different goals at that stage of the business. But when you're kind of like growing, expanding, you're mid to large scale and you haven't formatted this process or put it in
Mhm.
place, that's where you have an opportunity, or you have an area where you can improve
Yep.
internally as well as impact the external outlook of the organization. So how, in your view, should organizations structure their HR tech systems here to achieve this with a finer balance?
HR tech systems have come a long way. Everybody's got the bread and butter, particularly when you're talking about mid to larger scale organizations. You've got your HRIS, you've got your learning management, your applicant tracking, your performance management, and things like that. But I think the thing that brings that all together, and when you think about having a great workplace experience, which then leads to a great customer experience, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier on the priorities of a business and priorities of business leaders today. And it is being focused on the employee experience. Having a solution that helps create that great workplace experience, like that has now become a must have. It used to be like, oh, I'm interested in that. I'm intrigued. What does that mean? What does that do? I'm not really quite sure the value of it. Now the market is saying, I've got to have this. HR leaders are saying, I've got to have this in order to be able to deliver the metrics on the metrics that you are asking me to deliver on. You want me to have a high eNPS score. You want me to have high retention rates. You want me to be able to keep the best talent so that we can serve our customers well. This has become a critical tool. You want to create a destination for people. You want that employee experience platform that's going to help facilitate communication, engagement, feedback, things like employee apps and intranets, those types of things. Those are the things that are going to keep the teams connected, especially when you think of the way we're working now. It's hybrid, it's remote, it's all different kinds of ways. And so I think that having that employee experience platform and adding that to your HR technology tool chest really helps support company culture, the recognition, communication, social interaction, which will drive, a great team member experience and in turn, a great customer experience.
Absolutely. And of course, when we are having a conversation around this, none of it can be considered complete without talking about AI. I don't think any conversation today is complete without talking about AI any which way. But when it comes to the future of HR and HR tech, AI has been impacting a lot of different newer modes when it comes to hiring, when it comes to talent management, when it comes to even figuring out what the best way is to drive internal processes with the
Mhm.
prompts and with the way newer systems are made to function. So there's a lot of different ways to use new age AI features within your core HR tech stack to implement better processes within an organization. But of course, here's where there's a big problem. It's about upskilling, it's about knowing how to use it correctly, because it's still a very new technology and it's evolving as we speak. So let's talk a little bit about what you're most excited about when it comes to AI, the future of HR and HR tech, and of course what you're most weary about as well, because I don't think a lot of people talk enough about that.
Yeah. I might not be the right person either, because I am very excited about AI and I've been using it quite a bit. We use it a lot at Appspace, both in our product and that with what we provide to our customers, but also internally in our internal tools. Because I'm pretty excited about it. I think that it has a ton of power, and I think it can really revolutionize the way that we support our team members and the way that we understand them. AI has this ability to analyze like vast amounts of data and generate insights into it that would take us months, and weeks to do. It happens instantly. So you're able to get the analysis and then be able to act on it so much faster, which I think is pretty amazing. And from that, you can create very pointed programs for team members, whether it's on their learning and development, whether it's helping you assess people, talent for the perfect fit. Those types of things you can do in a much more robust way, in a much faster way, using some of the AI tools. The other piece of AI that I think is really, really great is the predictive analytics. As HR leaders, we're trying to kind of figure out workforce trends. We want to be able to identify challenges before they actually become a challenge, understand people's levels of engagement, and make sure that we're developing our strategies that align to what we know and meet the needs of the employees. So ultimately, it can really help us put us out of the day to day of things, and kind of some of the routine tasks, and help us focus on some of those important things. So I'm a big fan of AI. So honestly, there's not too much I'm worried about on AI for right now, but I think if there was one thing, you've just got to focus on AI as being a tool to augment, the human capabilities. It doesn't replace us. And I think it just, again, it just opens us up to be able to do more strategic and more creative and innovative work.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point for most of us to kind of absorb and note. It's across functions. And as we're talking about it, what I've observed with all these different conversations that we have at HRTech Series and our other publications is that what's most important is knowing how to use the tool and being a prompt engineer, learning how to be a prompt engineer and figuring out how to optimize the AI capabilities to suit your goal and future plans. So I think
Right.
that's where the whole loophole lies in, skilling, upskilling, having leaders as well, like modern day leaders may themselves not be tech efficient or tech savvy enough to pass that information or that knowledge down. So I think that end to end organizational upskilling initiative has to be more prevalent across the industry to implement these best practices, talking
Mhm.
about what you just said or highlighting what you just spoke about, using it to your advantage. That's what we need to learn to do on the whole. So I think this has been a very interesting conversation. But before we wrap up, we'd love it if you can talk or share a few thoughts about some of the biggest HR tech myths, given your years in the industry, that you'd like to bust.
We can be mythbusters. I like it. There's a couple things out there. One I think is around AI. People think that it's going to take the human touch out of business and work and HR in itself, which I think is completely false. It's not there to replace people, it's there to enhance, as we just talked about. So I think that is something that we need to break through. Maybe one or two other things. People think sometimes that HR technology is kind of one size fits all, and I don't think that that's the case. We want to deploy technology that's user friendly, and every organization is different. And I think you need to make sure that you're looking at the technology that's going to meet your goals, as well as one that kind of fits your culture and one that you can adapt to do that. So I think those are important things to look at when you're looking at HR tech. And I think for a long time, people always thought that some of that technology is really only good for large scale enterprise businesses, or that only the good solutions are so expensive that only the large companies can have them. And that's not the case. There's a lot of great tools out of there that's scalable for any size of business. And I think using the right tool for the right issue pays for itself. It's effective. It's just the way we work now. So I would encourage any business to make sure that they're looking at the right technology tools.
Absolutely. Holly, thank you so much once again for taking the time to do this. We're definitely going to have a lot of different kinds of conversations down the line as the marketplace evolves, as new trends come in and, impact the future of HR and HR tech. But until then, we wish you and the entire team at Appspace all the very best until the next time.
Thank you.